What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson. And the New York Rangers are still searching for a head coach. And we don't want to discuss who the head coach might be today. Instead, we want to discuss the impact that a head coach could have on a specific line on the team, and that line is the kid line. Now, we know looking at what the Rangers had this past season, they made it to the postseason, didn't make it past the first round. The kid line was a big part of their success for each of the past 2 years. Maybe they're ready for a more expanded role. Maybe a top six kid line could be in the cards in the future. We're going to go ahead and discuss the possibilities and what a new head coach could do in terms of impacting the kid line in today's episode. Before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. But without further ado, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on how a new head coach can affect the kid line's future?
Doing pretty good, a little tired, been staying up late watching 4 overtime games that, the Rangers should be playing in, but they're not. And I don't really want to discuss that part anymore. But I don't know. When you look at the kid line overall, as you mentioned, they are definitely a huge part of the team throughout the last 2 seasons. And the last season of the season that's still going on, they've played pretty well. Capo Caco set a new career high in goals and points. Heedle did the same as well. Lafreniere definitely the weakest of the three, but still very good season when he had 39 points. And pretty much the last few years, we've seen all three of these players kind of just hidden down on the third line. And ever since they started with the Rangers, they've experienced a couple of head coaches. David Quinn, definitely the worst one of the bunch, where he kind of just buried them down on the fourth line, gave the kids very little playing time, and it kind of made them have a slow start to their careers. And then Gerard Gallant came in and he utilized them a little bit more, where they played together on the third line a lot, received a lot of ice time. Every once in a while, either Lafreniere or Kakko would slide up into the first or second line playing along with their superstars, but pretty much overall they were still down as the kid line on the third line. And now you kind of look at their future, where the kid line, it might not really be a thing anymore, where it was the current roster, the people that we have coming and leaving, chances are we're not going to be able to re-sign either Tarasenko or Patrick Kane. So that kind of opens up two new roster spots up there in the top six. And depending on who this new head coach is and how they want to handle this situation, I think it's starting to look like the kid line, it's definitely not going to be a thing anymore. I definitely think that Capo Caco, out of every one of the three, kind of deserves to be up there in the top six, playing alongside either Kreider and Zibanejad or Panarin and Trocheck. And Lafreniere, I could also definitely see being moved up as well. The only one that I really don't see with too much flexibility is Philip Hedl, where we do have Zibanejad and Vincent Trocheck locked up for the next couple of years, really. So it kind of seems like Hedl might be stuck down there a little bit, but who knows what this new coach is going to want to do.
So, in your opinion, you don't think that those three are going to play on the same line, going forward?
I mean, it depends on how free agency goes. As we know, we don't really have too much money to move around to sign new people. So if I had to guess, the people who are going to be moved up into the roster are going to be players that are already signed within the organization. The rules get a little confusing, but I think it's possible that we could see Brennan Othman come across into the NHL this season, and I think he would probably start down on the third line rather than starting off in the top six. So maybe to start off the season, we would see the kid line together just so we can test out where these new players are going to fit in. But I think for a large majority of the season, it is time to see these all three first round picks, two of them in the top two picks. It's time for them to get some real top six ice time. I know Capo Caco has said it in interviews after our season came to a short and disappointing end, where even though we lost, Capo Caco does feel confident in his play. He's aware that he's had the best season that he's had so far. And when he was asked about things that he wanted to see going to next season, he said definitely more ice time and more time on the power play. So Caco feels like he's ready for it. I feel like he's ready for it. Definitely want to see him in the top six. Hedl can't really move too much. And then if Lafreniere is kind of a big question mark right now, where he's currently a restricted free agent. If the Rangers have the money to re-sign him, I'm sure we're going to try and really get that deal done. But there also have been reports of teams such as the Vancouver Canucks have expressed some serious interest in Lafreniere over the last couple of months. So I don't know how likely it is if Lafreniere were to be moved to a different team, but that is one option that's on the table if the Rangers aren't able to re-sign him. So all three of them are kind of like very movable pieces right now. Where besides Heedle, really, I think Heedle stuck down there in line 3. Cabo Caco definitely going to try to move him up. Lafreniere, I don't know. He might be stuck down there on the third line a little bit too, unless he's willing to translate his abilities over onto the right side. Because you look at left wing, you got Chris Kreider and Artemi Panarin. Can't really see them spending most of next season down on the third line. So overall, yeah, I don't really see the kid line sticking together too much.
Well, considering, you just mentioned those two players, Cryer and Panarin, left wingers on the first and second line, but you also earlier mentioned the right wingers, Tarasenko and Kane, both likely to leave. So would make a lot of sense if Lafreniere was able to transition to the right side and start playing over there, considering the top two right wingers for the Rangers are both likely to exit in free agency. But looking at, Hedel, Kako, and Lafreniere, who do you think of those three is most likely to play on the first line? Do you think it's Kako is the one who takes over up there, or do you think that Lafreniere could maybe sneak his way up there? I know that he was up there at some point earlier in this past season.
Yeah, I mean, just based on the way that the first line plays, I think that Kako not only deserves it the most, but would probably be the best fit. Where Chris Kreider, he's a very speedy guy. He's always driving towards the net. Zibanejad is more of the sit at the top of the circle and wait for a one-timer to come his way type of player. And Capo Kako, he's kind of like a little bit of a combination of the two, where we've seen, especially throughout the playoffs, where Kako performed the best was when he was carrying the puck into the zone. He has very good puck handling skills, and it takes a lot of effort for other teams to strip the puck away from him. So if Zibanejad's the type of player where he's going to be trying to get open at the top of the circle, Kreider's dashing towards the net looking for a deflection or something to tip in, Capo Caco might just be the best fit for someone to get that puck in and give it to one of those two players. Where on the other hand, Lafreniere, I mean, he's good. He doesn't really like excel in one particular aspect of the game. He's just like slightly above average in all of it with like shooting, stick handling, speed. So I mean, I think he'd fit better with Trocheck and Panarin, where Panarin's more of a pass it to him type of player rather than like a guy like Capo Caco who will be the one passing it to the other players, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. But with Philip Hedel, you keep mentioning that he's probably going to be stuck on that third line. 74 games played this past season, 22 goals, 23 assists, 45 total points. He led all three of the kids in points, but, by most accounts, Kako played the best. But with Hedel, do you see any opportunity where he could maybe move up into the top 6, or do you think like firmly he'll be stuck down in the bottom 6? And do you think that will diminish the impact that he can have on this team?
I mean, yeah, I mean, to start off, it definitely will diminish the impact he can have because the top 6, usually the first line and the second line, they get relatively similar ice time where they're playing the most out of pretty much the entire team. And the third line, it'll get more ice time than the fourth line, definitely, but it's definitely a huge gap in ice time between the first and second line and then the third line. So it's just like simple math. Like, if you're on the ice for less time, you're not going to have the ability to score as many points, but it's still good to see that Hedel did put up 45 points. He's still very young, and a 45-point season for a third liner is not bad. And if he were to be moved up into the first or second line at any point next season, I think he would excel up there. It's a little tough because, Mika Zibanejad, he's our star 1C. You're not going to see him playing anywhere else unless Zibanejad has like a horrible injury and he's like out for the entire season, which fingers crossed. I hope I did not just jinx that. He's going to be playing in the first line. It really just comes down to Vincent Trocheck on the second line, where Vincent Trocheck, he had a really good season this year, played really well alongside Artemi Panarin, and then at the end he mended pretty well with Tarasenko and Kane. So I think he's going to have another really good season, and it really just comes down to the fact that they're all just locked up for the next 4 years. Everyone's signed. Hedel just recently signed his new contract, a 4-year extension, 4.4 average annual value. So we know he's not going to be going anywhere. It's kind of just like Mika will always be number 1, Trocheck will be number 2, and then Hedel will be number 3 for at least the next 4 years. That's not going to change unless, like I said, an injury happens to someone, or if for some reason Trocheck decides to just forget how to play hockey. So chances are Hedel's kind of down there.
And then, talking about the potential of a new head coach kind of shaking things up here, what do you think the kid line needs? Like, what do you think that these three players need out of the next head coach? Because we've taken a look at a few candidates. Obviously Chris Noblock is one that's, garnering a lot of attention from Rangers fans for his ability to adapt mid-game, tear up an entire game plan and write a new one in the locker room, right? He's developed or demonstrated the ability to make adjustments, but we've also discussed some other guys who let there be a real free form, kind of the players play as they want. And then we've discussed other guys who are very offensive minded. What do you think the kid line needs specifically out of the head coach in order to find the most success this upcoming season?
I don't think it's more of a like style of play that they need. Maybe Lafreniere is the type of player that needs more of like a structured plan and not really just a like go out there and do your thing type of play, because that's kind of what Gallant did a little bit regarding the kids. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. They were a little inconsistent. I just think that the biggest thing that this new coach is going to give to the kid line is more time on the power play. When we've seen so many moments throughout the season where Lafreniere, Hedel, and Kako have like come so close to scoring goals, and like we were like they're on the brink of breaking out. They're putting up points, but we know that they have the potential to put up so much more. More time on the power play will help them kind of overcome that next step in their career, where instead of Capo Caco setting a career high at 40 points, maybe next season he's playing on the first line the entire time on the first power play, and all of a sudden he's a 70, 80 point scorer. So I think that's just the biggest thing, where throughout their entire careers, they've had two head coaches that haven't given them the ability to play as much as they want to and should be playing. Like Lafreniere and Kako, first and second overall picks. There's no reason why they, at this point of their career, they're still down on the third line. It's time for them to get big boy ice time. They're not really kids anymore. There should be full-time NHL veterans. So I think that's the biggest thing that this coach needs to understand.
Well, it'll be interesting to see which coach the New York Rangers do select and how big of an impact that will have on these kids. But, taking a look at them before we wrap up here with these three players, who do you think has the biggest upcoming season, right? 2023. We just saw Kako, set a new career high. He had a great season. He had a lot of opportunities that he didn't convert, but had he converted, he would have had a monstrous 2022 to 23 season. But then, Lafreniere also had 39 points. Hedel with 45 points led the three. But who do you think ends up leading them in points this upcoming season? And who do you think ends up finding that expanded role, really taking it by the horn and having that breakout year?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've just been riding him the whole episode, but it's got to be Capo Caco, where he has the biggest opportunity here, where he can kind of just slide up, not really change his position, and just play on a top line. Where Hedel, I expect Hedel to get a boost in points as well. He had 45 this season. Maybe he'll be in the 50s next season. He'll do as much as he can as he continues to develop down there on the third line. Lafreniere might struggle a little bit transitioning to the right side if he does end up moving up. But then at the same time, Lafreniere, if he's going to remain with the Rangers next season, he's going to have a new contract right in front of him. So maybe having like being paid more and just having that new confidence will just be like help him and boost his stats up a little bit. But I just think that Capo Caco has the highest ceiling. Before this season where he put up 40 points, his last career high was 23. So just to see him like almost double in career high points in one season, it's a pretty amazing stat right there. So I just think the ceiling is there. It's really high, and he's just going to keep climbing as long as he's getting that ice time, more power play time, and all that.
1,000%. I'm right there with you. I think Capo Caco is in line for a huge upcoming season, and hopefully, whichever new coach the Rangers do select is able to unlock that next level of Capo Caco and propel him into that breakout season. But those are our thoughts. Let us know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.